Good morning. Welcome back to the Red Mic. Happy Wednesday. I'm glad you're here. These Red Mic messages are leadership and life lessons I picked up from 25 years as a public servant, 16 years as a youth football coach and scouting volunteer, and 10 years as a mediocre athlete with far more heart than actual physical ability. Today's Red Mic message, we're going to talk about another one of the Deloitte the four archetypes from Deloitte. Yesterday we talked about pioneers, the people that see that brick wall and they run headfirst into it to knock through. Today we're going to talk about integrators. These are the people who thrive on relationships. Now, speaking of relationships, on a personal note, uh, part of the reason I don't talk about politics on here is that it gets too divisive. My whole attitude is, yeah, you can disagree on politics and policy, but at the end of the day, you're all still, Americans or Texans or whatever level of politics you happen to be discussing. For example, this morning through texts, I was having a rather robust conversation with a friend of mine. We were talking about casinos and also school vouchers. And we don't necessarily see eye to eye, but you know what? That would not stop me from calling him up saying, "Hey, I'm going to go get a whiskey. You want to join?" Or "I'm going to go to the chili parlor. Let's go have some food." So try to keep that in mind when you have those inevitable differences of opinion. It's just an opinion. It's not gospel. So anyway, moving on. Deloitte's number two. I don't, and I'm not saying that in a hierarchical standpoint. It's just the second one I'm discussing. Integrators. They're the people who thrive on relationships. They tend to see things in a rather, they see the shades of gray. They see the black and white, but they see the gray in between. They try to bridge the gaps between positions, between people, between workplace issues, whatever it is. And they try to ensure that everybody has a seat at the table. They value collaboration, meaning, and harmony. Integrators quite often are the glue that can hold things together. But even though it is their strength, it can also be their weakness because they might hesitate to push forward because they may not want to rock the boat, or they might get overly bogged down in discussions and think about every perspective without making a decision. Like my Mima used to tell me, "Pat, at some point you just got to swallow the liver." Now, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, maybe I have. She was talking about fried liver. Now, if you eat fried liver, which I've done twice, and you will chew it, and see, at some point it just stops getting smaller. And her point was, at some point you just got to get over with. You just got to swallow that liver. So, at some point in the discussion, you have to make a decision. So, if you're an integrator, yes, your ability to bring people together is powerful, but only if it leads somewhere. So, if you work with an integrator, don't mistake their patience for passivity. They're not indecisive necessarily. They're just trying really hard to ensure that the right decision is made. But sometimes you got to decide quicker than that. So, bridge builders are invaluable, but again, you got to cross the bridge, right? Now, Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers, everybody love Mr. Rogers. He he's a textbook integrator. He didn't shy away from difficult conversations. He embraced them. He made everybody feel better about who they are, what they thought, everything else. In 1969, you may remember this. Now, of course, it was just an actor. It was an actual policeman. But in 1969, Mr. Rogers kind of made television history when he sat down and he soaked his feet in a kiddie pool with an African American guy. And, talk about, Jesus's washing of the feet. If there was a better metaphor for bridging the gap between races, I can't think of one off the top of my head. And Mr. Rogers, in that moment, was showing unity, a level of warmth and understanding and joining, frankly, that the nation needed. And it was broadcast into millions of homes. Let's talk about a different African American, Tony Dungy. He was a coach who led with integrity, emotional intelligence. I've read that he never yelled at anybody. Now, I raised my voice. I yelled quite often when I was on the football field. Usually only when I was frustrated or trying to really, really get a point across. But Dungy didn't. He worked hard on the relationships with his players. He instilled trust. He led with quiet confidence. You can yell and be confident, but Tony Dungy didn't. His players weren't just athletes to him, they were all individuals, and he saw their personal struggles, their aspirations, etc. Again, you can be a yelling coach and still see all of that, but Tony Dungy, definitely an integrator. Last but not least of the real life examples, Lin-Manuel Miranda. He blended musical styles and cast actors of color to portray the founding fathers, and his musical Hamilton made history accessible and relevant to a lot of people. And yeah, there are a lot of historical errors in it. I'll give you that. But if someone picked up the book Hamilton and read it, and it's that thick. If they picked that book up and read it from cover to cover because Lin-Manuel Miranda brought those ideas to the table, you know, is there a better example of bringing people together across generations and cultures? He's another classic integrator. So these three guys, they talked about it. They lived it, the power of connection. They weren't the loudest voices in the room, but their impact, it's undeniable. Relationships are the foundation of change. Again, integrators can spend so much time making sure that everybody's heard that they can sometimes forget that the goal isn't just discussion, it's action. And connection is a tool, not the end result. So if you work with an integrator or if you are an integrator type, embrace your gift, embrace their gift, build those bridges, create that understanding. But when the time comes, either have the courage to lead people across to the other side or grab the hand of a pioneer and let them take you take you to the promised land. And that's today's Red Mike message. I hope you found it interesting. I hope you find it helpful. Again, these are all archetypes from Deloitte's workplace chemistry study, their program. Look it up. Just look up Deloitte Workplace Chemistry. I think you'll find it an interesting read. Tomorrow is point 3 of the Deloitte archetypes. Drivers. They are the types who will push forward with confidence where integrators might hesitate in making the tough calls to preserve harmony. So you got to have drivers, you got to have the pioneers, right? And you got to have the integrators too. So it all fits together. So again, that's today's Red Mike message. I appreciate you being here. I hope you'll join me tomorrow. I really appreciate you. Give me a like, a follow, and a share, no matter what platform you're watching on. I appreciate you so very much. And don't forget, life is short. Drink the bourbon.